Hi everyone, thank you very much. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic horror movie review. This is number 10 of my classic horror movie review series, and my objective for this month is to bring you at least 13 of these classic horror movie reviews, with the 13th and final review coming out on October 31st. And the film I'm talking about now came to us from the late Johnathan Demme, who is responsible for movies like Caged Heat, Something Wild, Married to the Mob, Philadelphia. He also directed Beloved and the remake of The Manchurian Candidate, among many other films. The great Johnathan Demme, and this is his classic film, his masterpiece, 1991's The Silence of the Lambs. Based on the 1988 book written by Thomas Harris, this movie wasn't the first one to be adapted from one of his stories about Hannibal Lecter. The honor of that goes to the 1986 film from director Michael Mann, Manhunter, starring William Peterson and Brian Cox in the role of Hannibal Lecter, who played the character a good 5 years before Anthony Hopkins was able to gain such recognition for the role. And even though 1986's Manhunter is a very underappreciated and underrated film, I still gotta say 1991's The Silence of the Lambs is the best among the Hannibal Lecter films. To me, it's the film that packs the most punch, it's the one that stands out the most, and I think a lot of that has to do with the pedigree of talent in front of the camera as well as behind. Of course, you have the great Anthony Hopkins, who's already been in so many great movies by the time he was in this film. Movies like 1978's Magic, of course, The Elephant Man from 1980, 1984's The Bounty. He was also in the classic film The Lion in the Winter. Then, of course, you got the great Jodie Foster, who by this time was already a very distinguished actress. A few years before this, she won her first Academy Award for the 1988 film The Accused, and would go on to win her second award in the same category for her role as Clarice Starling, because she really knocks it out of the park in this movie. And she was one of those actresses that was acting from a very young age, having been a child actress. Of course, she was in the original 1976 Freaky Friday and Taxi Driver, which came out that same year. And she was in that comedy with Scott Baio, Bugsy Malone. Anthony Hopkins does not have a tremendous amount of screen time in this movie. Even though he's only in the film for about 12 to 15 minutes, he still leaves a very lasting impression because his character is so strongly written and perfectly performed by the actor. He has some of the best dialogue in the film. Hopkins' performance as Hannibal Lecter is honestly one of the best performances I've ever seen in a film, because there are times when he comes off polite and very charming, and at the same time, he doesn't lose that edge of being this very scary guy, even though there is a thick pane of glass between him and our main character, Clarice, played by Jodie Foster. We know that she's safe because she's behind the glass and he's on the other side. But it doesn't matter. The way that this movie is shot, the way it has these close ups of the actors, with Hopkins looking right at the frame, right at the audience, like he's talking to us, you are scared watching this guy talk throughout the film right to you. The music score in this movie from composer Howard Shore feels perfectly crafted for every single scene in this film. From beginning to end, you feel like you're in the hands of true masters, whether it's the writer or the director or the composer. The music in this film really does great at highlighting many of the dramatic scenes. At the same time, when it comes to the scary scenes, it's not one of those films that lets you know through the music that something scary is about to happen, like a lot of movies do, where you can just sense because of the music that something is about to happen. That is not this film whatsoever. This movie does a great job in breaking a lot of those horror film conventions. At the very beginning of the film, we meet Jodie Foster's character, Clarice Starling, as she is training to become a special agent for the FBI. And as soon as the opening credits are done rolling, she gets an assignment from her boss, Jack Crawford, played by Scott Glenn. He played such a douchebag in Urban Cowboy. But yeah, he's very good playing a nice guy like Jack Crawford. The assignment Clarice is given is to interview a serial killer known as Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who has been locked up for about 10 years. And he's a very cultured and refined individual who knows his fine wines and knows about art and history. And he's a very well educated person. And he's also very polite to those that are polite to him back. But for anybody that shows him any kind of rudeness, he has plans for those people. Pretty soon, Clarice learns from her boss that the reason she was sent to go speak to Hannibal Lecter in the first place is to see if he can help them on the case of a current serial killer preying on innocent women, a man known as Buffalo Bill, played by Ted Levine, in a very chilling performance. And this is definitely one of those characters that you will never forget after watching this film, given how this is a man that used actual methods from real life serial killers, people like Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was a serial killer that was known to put on a fake cast on his arm, pretend to be hurt, and use that to lull people into a false sense of security in order to lure them in just before he killed them. And that is a method that is used by the serial killer Buffalo Bill in this film. This movie must have had some kind of a technical advisor as far as somebody from the FBI to give the filmmakers all kinds of insider knowledge, because when you watch the film, it really does feel very authentic and realistic in its depiction of the investigation of the manhunt for Buffalo Bill, and especially early in the film where we see some of Clarice Starling's training to become a special agent in the obstacle course that she runs at the opening credits. Plus, there's a moment where she's doing a little shooting training. She's told to watch her corners, and all kinds of stuff like that really make it feel like there was somebody from the FBI to lend these people a hand into making sure it all felt very real. One of the many reasons why The Silence of the Lambs is such a great film, and one of my favorite aspects of the film, is the evolution of the Clarice Starling character. At the beginning of the film, she is very wet behind the ears still, but as the film progresses, more and more she kind of toughens up with every passing scene, with every encounter with Hannibal Lecter, when she has those back and forths with him with the glass between them. She gets a bit more and more assertive and more sure of herself, from those moments between her and Lecter to the moments where she has to kind of fight off Dr. Chilton. He's like the warden at the sanitarium that's holding Lecter, who kind of tries to back on her for a little bit, but of course, she's very kind of tactful in the way she handles that. And then later on, when she has to be there to examine somebody's dead body that has gone through a bit of skinning by Buffalo Bill, you can tell she's squeamish at first, but she kind of pulls through and just stays tough all throughout that moment. And so the more you see this kind of behavior from her, you really start to root for her character as she just gets better and better at her job. If you're a squeamish person, or you find that you are the kind of person that is sensitive to gore and horror films, there are a couple of scenes in this movie that you might want to cover your eyes or turn your head. But for the most part, this is a psychological thriller with some of the more scarier moments involving the character of Buffalo Bill, and scenes where he's holding a particular person captive deep within his home in the basement. Those scenes come off very creepy and disturbing, and especially the way those scenes are performed by the actor in the role of Buffalo Bill. Yeah, he's just really good in the part and very convincing. Though this film is overall a very entertaining psychological thriller, because it is a very character driven film with very great performances all throughout, it does also feel like a great drama at times. And one of the very interesting things about that is it walks that line between drama, thriller, and even full on scary movie, because some of the acts of violence in the film, as far as some of the gore is concerned, really help to push the film into horror movie territory. And there are moments in this film of genuine horror. Something else that really helped to make this movie a standout when it came out back in 1991 was the way it had a female as the lead character playing the hero of the story, which was something that wasn't very common back then. We did have females kick ass, from Pam Grier to, Ripley from Aliens, played by Sigourney Weaver, which I just talked about in my previous video. Even though every now and then I do enjoy a good 90-minute slasher movie that can be kind of schlocky and, kind of a B movie, every now and then I also appreciate a very well acted film that has, Oscar caliber writing and directing. And considering this movie won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay, this is one of those films that you will watch and think, I gotta watch this sucker again, especially if you appreciate great filmmaking. The Silence of the Lambs is a 4-star masterpiece. This is a movie you can find on streaming, but if you want to get yourself a hard copy, I'm always encouraging that since they're on the way out. This is my copy of the Blu-ray. As you can see there, that is Jodie Foster, and that is kind of a moth thing in her mouth, and there's a little kind of a face there on it, very creepy looking. The Silence of the Lambs, 1991, a great choice for October for the spooky season. Thank you very much for watching this classic movie review. I appreciate you for watching. If you're a new viewer, if you're into this kind of thing, hit the bell, become a subscriber. Please don't forget to comment, share, like. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for your support. Please look out for the next classic horror movie review. Have a safe and happy October. Till next time, take care.